Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to yet another Zoom call on a gorgeous summer evening. I know you probably have lots of other fun, maybe outdoor activities to do, so I'm really honored that you're here. Tonight's presentation is called How to Homeschool Your Kids, and I'm Dr. P. Dominique Paderano, the president and founder of Crimson Coaching. Sorry about that. So, who am I? I was a high school teacher for many years and decided to launch Crimson Coaching, an academic tutoring, test prep, and college counseling service. Crimson because my undergraduate degree is from Harvard, and crimson is the color associated with Harvard. I developed this talk primarily because Emily asked me, but also because I know that homeschooling and distance learning are on everybody's minds right now. And I wanted to just give some sort of basic facts and considerations for parents from a teacher's point of view, some things that you may want to think about if you're thinking about homeschooling your child or children. So tonight's agenda, as it is I'll be giving this PowerPoint presentation in webinar format for about, say, 25 minutes or so. You can absolutely feel free to jump in, ask a question if you'd like, or you can save them until the end. Best practices for Zoom, I'm sure everybody knows by now, but if you could mute yourself, that would be really helpful because the background noise sometimes is really distracting. And before we go on any further, I just want to once again give three big thank yous. You to being here, Emily Dowie, the young adult librarian goddess from Pearl River Public Library, for organizing this and for always looking out for her students and families' needs, and the Pearl River Public Library itself for sponsoring this talk tonight. So the first thing I'd like you all to know is that if you are thinking about homeschooling your child, you are not alone. Before we go any further, I'd like to just provide a definition for what a homeschooled child is. So literally yesterday, the New York Times, I encourage you to go online and look at this article if you're thinking of homeschooling your child. Jessica Grose, Grose, is the parenting editor of the Times. And she defines it according to, I believe it's the National Center on Education Statistics. A student is homeschooled if they're in a traditional school setting, less than 25 hours a week, if they are not being homeschooled because of a temporary illness, or if their parents say they're homeschooled. So that's what a homeschooled child is. About almost 1.7 million American children are homeschooled, and we'll get into the different reasons that might be in a moment. And as you might imagine, the National Homeschool Association has recorded that inquiries from parents about homeschooling have exploded since March. And I'm going to see if I can I'm not sure why there is this little, I can't get that little uh, black mark off there. But anyway, some questions you might want to consider if you're thinking of homeschooling. I think the first one that's most crucial is how do your children learn best if you're thinking of homeschooling? Because that should really guide the type of lessons that you develop for your child. So for example, if your child is a kinesthetic learner, and many young children are, you're going to need to think about getting them up out of their seats a lot. If they're a visual learner, you're going to want to have nice visuals. If they learn more through hearing or music, you can think about gearing your lessons towards that. Obviously, with so many people still working from home, you want to consider, how will homeschooling fit into your work life? Is all day education something that your family can adopt? And there's no shame if that's not. So these are the last two considerations, are usually some more of the kind of, you know, downers, I think, about homeschooling. But I want to just share with you another one is that, many students can actually flourish and blossom while being taught from home. Students, for example, who have experienced bullying at school, students who are bored at school, can sometimes become a behavior issue and really start to disrupt classes. And so, you know, the benefit, obviously, to homeschooling is that, if you notice your child has caught on like that, if you've got a really bright kid, you can kind of take him or her as quickly as they master the material. So there are definitely some benefits to it as well, despite the challenges. So you might want to consider some of your options. Many people in the past have homeschooled their children because of religious issues. They wanted to integrate more religion into the child's curriculum. And there are a whole host of organizations and curricula that are designed for parents who want to do that. That, I would say, has often been among the primary drivers of the homeschooling movement up until COVID, in the United States, up until now. You can go completely online. For example, Stanford has a completely online high school curriculum, or you can design your own lessons and supplement them perhaps with online lessons. For example, many of the lessons on Khan Academy, I think, are great, especially if you're a parent, many parents, it's been a while since you've taken algebra or geometry or trigonometry. Maybe you never took them. And I think that Khan Academy's lessons are really pretty good in this respect. And so you can supplement from online options as well. So you don't necessarily have to invent everything. Most importantly, I think, if and when you're designing the majority or even some of your child's lessons, is letting your child's passion dictate where you go. So I'm a huge fan, for people who are homeschooling, of project-based learning, which can often be very interdisciplinary. So, for example, when I was a very young teacher, I did an interdisciplinary unit for grades K through 3 gifted program that I taught on the weekends. And the unit was called All Roads Lead to Rome. And the kids learned some sonnets, so they had writing. They also learned art. And believe it or not, I saved eggshells for months before I taught this course, because the kids learned how to make a mosaic. And so, there was a big long mosaic, and we painted different eggshells, different colors, and then they made a mosaic. We also integrated PE. Um, I made little sort of Roman chariots out of boxes, and so they got to run around. And then they also learned math and science, and looking at arches and things like that the Romans built. And of course, obviously, history. That was kind of the overarching concept of this ancient Rome lesson. So That's the idea of integrating many different kinds of subjects into a sort of a unit. And the benefit of this is that students learn how to make connections, draw connections among disciplines. That's what adults do all the time in our work life. And oftentimes, the sort of strict boundaries between ELA and math, if we're never really integrating them, I think we're doing kids a disservice. Project-based learning is similar, but it kind of sort of brings it up a notch. So you would design the entire lesson around a sort of project or a goal. So, for example, another course I took, we kind of reenacted the trial of Galileo. And so this was kind of like a much more narrow focus, and we got to get into the astronomy of it. This was a gifted class for kids grades 4 through 6. Um, so we got into the math and astronomy of it, the history of it, as well as the theatrical aspect of this trial. And so these can both really, especially if you have multiple kids around the same age, this can be wonderful. I would suggest, and we'll talk about pods in a second, homeschooling pods. You could also do this virtually as well with other kids who are being homeschooled. Um, but whatever your child's passion is, whether it's astronomy or ancient Rome, I think you should this is a great time to get children on board to be responsible for and accountable for their own learning. And I think that one of the greatest ways to do that is really to make sure that you construct with your child beforehand the benchmarks that he or she will have to hit throughout this lesson, right? And so you don't want to be, I mean, the kind of downside of regular school is that, when there's, say, 25 kids in a class, oftentimes the teacher can't really do this. And so it's teacher mandated benchmarks and teacher mandated sort of what you have to do when. But if you're doing this along with your child, you can really, I think it's a great opportunity to show them how they can be responsible for that. And I would like to think, hopefully, even if, say, they're only in 5th grade, that will pay off dividends even if you stop homeschooling after COVID is over, so that they then become much more accountable for their work as they go into middle school and high school. So when you homeschool children in any state, the state will have requirements about that. Education by the Constitution it's not a federal function. It is mandated. Each state has its own requirements, and so New York State has some requirements. The first one being you need to actually file a notice of intent with your school district superintendent within 14 days of beginning your homeschooling, whether that's at the beginning of the year or whether it's, say, October 13th, whatever it is, as well as every year thereafter if you wind up continuing. You also need to then provide an instructional plan. So this is the plan that you and perhaps your child will construct of what you plan to do and cover, as well as quarterly reports. So would sort of be like the child's report card, but now you need to do this on what the child has actually learned during the previous quarter, and at the end of the year provide an annual assessment to the superintendent of what your child has learned. In terms of amount of time, you'll also need to be sure that you're, keeping close logs. For students in grades 1 through 6, they are required to have 900 hours of instruction in a year. Students grade 7 through 12 need 990 hours of instruction throughout the year. And if you are thinking of of homeschooling your child, I strongly recommend that you copy down this website. I'll stay on it for a moment so you can do so. It's www.p12.nysed.gov/ or backslash rather SSS / home instruction / so this is the main sort of homepage of the state requirements for people who are planning on homeschooling. So you really want to maintain compliance with that by making sure you go there. Okay. And if you are visiting us from a state that's not New York, I'm sure your state has a similar website as well. So, my one caveat about homeschooling is if your child is in um, 11th or 12th grade, maybe even 9th or 10th, is that you really want to make sure. So, basically, if your child's in high school, you really want to make sure what are the implications of homeschooling your child on their college admissions chances later on. To have the best chance of acceptance to a selective university, it's recommended that you enroll in an accredited program. For example, there's Keystone School, there's University of Texas of Austin High School. They are sort of tried and true. Their program, their curriculum has already been accredited by an outside agency. And so if you're worried about the impact, and I'm just wondering, Pugliese, if you
Yes.
could mute yourself, that would be great. You were currently not muted. Thank you. Um, and in addition, if you're worried about the impact of uh, homeschooling on college admissions, have your child take AP and or SAT-2, which are also called subject tests, so that they can prove their mastery of certain content and skills, for example, like writing skills. That's sort of like a universal benchmark that will help them prove that. In New York State, we have the regents, and generally that's what the regents are intended to do. But of course, last year the regents were canceled. The APs actually still happened. So even though the APs were dramatically changed in form, at least students who were homeschooled could still demonstrate their mastery of whatever subject they were taking that test in. So practically speaking, what kind of sort of person or what practices do you need to do in order to successfully homeschool your child? I think it's really important to set a schedule and stick to it, especially when you have more than one child. Feel free to email me for my Dr. P's distance learning checklist. This was something that's really I had intended for children who were still enrolled in school, but learning online through school. So that's more what distance learning is. But it would still apply for children who are being homeschooled. Many of the same principles still apply. And I say set a schedule and stick to it because I think and if your child can collaborate with you in making that schedule, I think they'll have some ownership of it. And again, if you set these benchmarks of things for your home instruction plan that you're providing to the superintendent, and you're at least making good faith progress towards it, I think then, all will be okay. I think it could be really easy, especially if when you've got work, when you've got other things going on, to kind of fall by the wayside. And so I'm at most teachers, or I should say most good teachers, I think are real planners and are super organized. So if you are going to take on the burden of teaching your child, you're going to want to adopt some of that forward thinking. By contrast, though, don't think you need to be right next to your child, especially if they're in middle school or high school, 100% of the day. Their teachers aren't with them 100% of the day, and so nor should you be. There should be time for practice of skills that you've taught. There should also be time for independent reading. There should be time for quiet reflection and downtime. In one of, if later on, I'll give you instructions for my YouTube. If you go on actually for, I think it was Pearl River Public Library earlier in spring, I did a webinar on taming anxiety for teens, but this applies to anybody. There's sort of 7 different types of activities that our brains need in order to be healthy, and one of them is downtime without screens or anything like that. And so you can incorporate that into your child's homeschool day as well. And finally, you can enlist the support of targeted professionals like me. For example, if you don't know algebra or trigonometry, obviously, you might want to bring somebody else in. I have a tennis player here. Maybe you're not athletic and your child needs to meet the PE requirement. So don't think that you have to completely go this alone, and know that there's a reason, for example, why elementary school kids go to special, right? Hi, Mr. and Miss Carpaccio. Could you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Thanks. And then there's a reason why, in middle school and high school, your kids have a bunch of different teachers because no one can be good at everything. Okay. So one thing, again, as I'm kind of alluding to on the last slide, you want to really connect with others. You might want to find a mentor through one of the homeschooling networks I'm going to talk about. You can link up with other homeschooling groups or others who homeschool in your area. You can start a homeschooling co-op, and these have gotten a lot of buzz lately. The co-op is where, like, you might say, I don't know, say you're an architect, and so you might be really good in math, and then you have a friend who's the editor of a local newspaper, so they're really good in English language arts, and you each agree to sort of like teach each other's kids the various subjects that you're good in. That's sort of the co-op model. A pod would be where similar, a bunch of kids all still together, but you might be hiring out a teacher, and that could be either prearranged by some organization, or you can, I know also sometimes families are setting those up themselves. There are verified organizations that are out there to help guide you more than a 30-45 minute webinar can do, such as the National Homeschool Association. And there are tons of Facebook groups, as I'm sure you know. I heard one mom talking about how they're a little overwhelming, so maybe just belong to like one in your area. But then there are also really good websites like homeschoolrealm.com, rockyourhomeschool.net. I'm sure you may even know of others if you've been thinking about this for a while. So, to learn more, I definitely think, feel free to email me. My email address is info@crimsoncoaching.com. You can get my distance learning checklist for your child and you. I also have lots of talks upcoming in the next 2 months. Some are at Pearl River. They're webinars like this. Others of them are at other libraries, but the libraries in Westchester have been great. They've really been, just like Pearl River and Rockland, they've really been allowing people to cross-register. So if you like Crimson Coaching on Facebook, you'll get news of all of these upcoming talks that are free. You can also see them on the classes and workshops page of my website, which is www.crimsoncoaching.com. And then if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, just search Crimson Coaching on YouTube, you'll see other talks like this one for parents. But in addition, I have a ton of videos for students. Everything from goal setting to time management to note taking. They're pretty short. And if you've got kids who are older, I have a whole course, a 10-week course, 5 minutes each video on what they should be doing each week for the college application process. So I'm eager to hear your questions in a moment. I just want to once again thank Emily Dowie and Pearl River Public Library for having me and hosting this talk. If you felt like you learned a little something, I would be so grateful if you could Google Crimson Coaching LLC on Google and scroll down to write a review and leave a review. So with that, I am just going to open this up to questions. You could feel free to either put it in the chat or feel free to just unmute yourself. There's only 9 of us here, and that's including Emily and me. So, unmute yourself if you've got a question, okay?
Does anyone have any questions, or feel free to put it in the chat?
No, I think I'm good for now. This is Nicole Schuster. I'm definitely going to check out. I've already subscribed to Crimson's YouTube. I found it while she was chatting.
Oh, good.
While the doctor was chatting, and I found her on LinkedIn. But I don't have any questions right now. But it's definitely something that we're going to look into.
Okay, great.
Also, Nicole, if you can think of any more webinars that would be helpful for the library to organize, that would help you, like, as a parent, or figure out, like, the homeschooling situation or the school situation, please let me know. You can email me. I can put my my work email in the chat.
Absolutely. I think you're doing a great job so far.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's exactly what we need. I think there's just so much information out there, and it really helps if, the library kind of just narrows it down to just one resource, and then we can start from there. There are a ton of Facebook pages you can go to, but it's never one-on-one like we have the doctor here right now. We're able to ask her questions. Of course, at 7:00, right? 7:30.
It's hard.
And
yeah.
no one's brain is quite functioning at this hour.
It's okay. It's all
So
right.
I'm just going to sleep on it. I'm definitely going to email both of you guys tomorrow morning when I'm nice and fresh and not with a 9-month-old suffocating me on my chest here.
Absolutely. Yeah. You and anybody else, if you think of a question while you're in the shower tomorrow morning or whatever it is, feel free.
But
I'm happy.
also, I feel like the title of this event, homeschooling, it scared away people that aren't sure what they're going to do yet. But I agree, anybody who is potentially going to have somebody that's social learning, distance learning. See what I mean? My brain is shut. Distance learning, it's very similar to homeschooling. We don't have to submit all these reports or quarterly reports to superintendent or, the Department of Education, but it's still, the organization and resources, it's all the same. And I think a lot more people would be interested in learning about this if maybe homeschooling / social learning. distance learning.
Virtual learning and distance
Yeah,
learning.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
feel bad that people were scared away. But this is being recorded, and so I'm gonna put it up on the YouTube on the library's YouTube channel.
Perfect.
So
That's
if
what I
you can
figured.
tell
I shared
people
that with
that it
other
would be very,
friends.
oh, thank you. So you can tell people that, they feel free for them to watch it, and that, it's just an info session.
Right, right. And it's very basic info, simple, exactly what I needed to hear. Um,
Oh,
it
I'm so
wasn't
glad.
overload. I'm happy that I've got this YouTube channel. I'm going to flip through it. I also have teenager nephews and nieces that are going to find this very helpful as well. In addition to my second grader.
oh,
So
that's
I
great.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. That's great to know. And if you feel like other people who say, no, there's no way I'm ever going to homeschool. My kid is going to go back, whether it's in person or distance learning. I'm teaching a class. It's 3 different nights, 3 different Wednesdays. I think it's September 9th, September 16th, September 23rd. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really geared for like middle and high school students, but it's really succeeding as a distance learner. So
Oh, I will definitely share that.
yeah, so it's like I used to teach this course. It was called Time Management and Study Skills, but we kind of
You held that at the library once, correct?
I
I think I
Yes.
missed it. Yeah, I missed that one.
I did, and now it's those same kind of skills, but adapted for the online environment because you arguably kids need even more time management skills when they're
Right,
in a distance learning environment and when they're in front of their computer all day, or worse yet, if they never interact with their teachers face to face and they
right.
just get emailed, oh, here's this assignment, it's due on this date, and then they have to kind of figure out how to do it. So the time management piece becomes really important in the distance
Right. And
setting.
that's actually what the case is for the lower, the, I know for a fact for, grades K through 4, there's no timeline for us. You just kind of like get it in. So you make your own timeline. And for me, being really busy, I have my own work schedule to manage. I end up getting it in on Friday or Sunday night.
Um,
Um, it's different for everybody, but everything you've shared is very helpful. And I did like the point that you made that these kids need downtime. They need time off the screen, in order to balance that healthy mindset. Just too much screen time is just it's not gonna work out well in the end.
Yeah, and now I think we need to be more mindful of it than ever because, you know, we all have to be on screens in order to do our schooling or work. And
Right,
so our now free time, whereas before, if we were doing our schooling or work in person, you know, we could play, Xbox or Roblox.
right. Our free time would be the screen time.
Right, exactly, but now I think it's really important, and, it's funny because even kids who, really like school and are good at it, I have a niece who just finished 2nd grade, and, I actually have this up on my website, it's under the resources section if you wanna check it out. It's actually a multidisciplinary unit combining science, math, and writing. And we were outside because it was the beginning of the pandemic. And we got into on our walk home about the effects of too much. My niece loves Roblox. About too much, video game playing on the brain. And I said, well, there are studies that show. And she said, they didn't study my brain. No, they didn't study my brain. And she was really like doubling down on the fact that it's
Sounds like my daughter. That's how yes, that's her. And she loves Roblox too.
Yeah, I mean, my niece is a great kid and she's very smart, but I think, the more we're just intentional about, yeah, this isn't good for you, just like the same way we would tell them, that eating a bag of Doritos isn't good for them, right? Um,
Right.
yeah. Anybody else come up with any questions or
Yes, hi, sorry, this is Rachel. I just sent one to the chat. Sorry, I'm trying to drive, but I was trying to make sure I could get my question in.
oh,
I kind of signed in late. I'm sorry, because I just got out of work, but I just wanted to, I didn't hear the beginning, so I will look forward to seeing it on the YouTube channel later, through the library, but I just had some other kind of random questions. So right now you register for our daughter to do the complete remote option through the school, through Pearl River. But do you have tips on, let's say, we're going to try this out and see if this can work. My husband and I were both in healthcare, so I really don't know if we're going to even make this happen.
yeah.
And so I didn't know if, there's good tips or resources. Like, let's say if we did, we're going through the school, but then let's say we realize a few weeks in, this is not going to work for her or us. Can we then just transition to us doing the homeschooling ourselves?
You can. You might have missed this slide. You just need to provide 14 days before you take your daughter out of school,
Okay.
that you're going to do that. And
I
then,
see.
yeah, and then you need to, and the exact timing on when you need to get the home instruction plan, I'm not exactly certain. But if you go back and watch, I have a website at the bottom, and the slide is called New York State's Requirements.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and you can go on that website and that'll kind of give you, but the big one is you have to notify the district
The
at least
school.
14 days before, provide a home instruction plan, give quarterly reports, and an end of year assessment.
And what exactly would those quarterly reports like entail?
You're again there I'm sure they have like more sort of bullets and things like that.
Okay.
You're basically, the quarterly reports will basically be demonstrating what your child has learned.
You're
So
doing. Okay.
just like teachers need to, we set up a plan and it's called a lesson plan. And we
Right.
say in our lesson plan, by the end of this lesson, the student will be able to say, count to 5 on her own backwards and forwards. Like maybe it's,
Okay.
maybe it's kindergarten or something. And then you
Okay.
need a way of assessing whether the child actually mastered what you said they were
That
going to do.
in the plan.
Right?
Okay.
So this
Right.
this
Okay.
is on a much longer, you won't have to do that for every lesson, but you say at the end of a quarter, you say, I want my child to learn, the capital of all 50 states, and maybe you show that by a test that you give them showing
Right.
of all
Okay.
the states.
I see. And
Yeah.
those are quarterly reports. Okay. Yeah. I just, no, this was a great resource. And I had signed up through the Pearl River. And, I'm sorry that I missed the beginning of it. Um, but yeah, I guess something that I was thinking, if we try this complete distant option. But again, and I don't even know if Pro River really told us exactly how that curriculum is going to work. I just know that Wednesdays are going to be the days that they don't have anything,
Mhm.
so I don't really know as far as the schedule what that's going to be.
Right. The other thing, just FYI, in case you do decide, anybody out there decide to do it for the end of year assessment, it's a more lengthy form, but they will actually substitute. There's a test, you may have heard it, for kids, called the California Assessment, or the CAT. And so kids can actually take the CAT for their grade level, and if they get above a certain score on that, they
Hmm.
can, you wouldn't have to write the end of year assessment in
Oh,
many.
I see. Yeah, actually, that was my other question, was like, how would we, like, yeah, show, like if let's say we were able to successfully homeschool her, that she's, you know, completed whatever requirements, you know, for kindergarten in order to enter first grade? Or is that like a school district like specific thing?
Well, you know, I actually think, and I'll admit I'm not a homeschooling expert and I'm not an educational policy expert, but I actually don't think kindergarten is mandated, which is why in the earlier slide I had showed, for instance, for grades 1 through 6,
Mm-hmm.
students need to be in school, whatever that is. You know, if it's at home, they need to receive 900 hours of
Right. Okay.
in. There wasn't anything for kindergarten. So I think in
Right.
kindergarten, you have a lot more flexibility.
Okay.
But it by first grade, then that's mandated. It's got to be 900 hours.
Yes, I remember I did do some research looking up exactly at how to homeschool based on New York State's, you know, rules or, you know, protocols. But yes, I did remember not really seeing anything specifically for kindergarten, like you said. But yes, I remember seeing something about 900 hours. But yeah, that was for like the higher grades.
Right, grades 1 through 6, and then 990 for 7 through 12.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess feel lucky then that it's just kindergarten. But
Yeah, and hopefully by the time your daughter's in first, this will all be over.
oh gosh, yes, I hope so. I hope so. But thank you so much for taking my question. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the
No,
other
not at all.
people.
Not at all.
Any other people have questions out there?
Actually, sorry, I do have one more other question. So as far as like you said, as far as like the curriculum, let's say we end up wanting to homeschool her, you know, we give the notice to the superintendent. And then as far as the curriculum itself, so let's say if we wanted to use an online site, like Time for Learning or something is one of what was someone suggested to us. You know, if they provide a curriculum, is that something that then I can just share with the superintendent or, you know, with the school district saying this is what we're going to follow?
Yeah, but you probably, so there's a difference between sort of a curriculum and a plan. The plan is much more sort of schematic, and it will be like, these are the goals that my child is going to that we're going to shoot for.
Okay,
And the curriculum is sort of how you're going to get there.
I
You
see.
Yeah, so you may need to provide a little bit about the curriculum in the plan, but the plan is much more about the goals and also how you're going to assess whether she met those goals or not.
I see.
Does that make
Okay.
sense? And so
Yeah, that makes sense.
the curriculum is the piece in the middle, and you're going to outline that, but it's not like you're not going to get that into depth in that.
I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was the one thing that I wanted to ask because I did I did look into it a little bit, but I wasn't sure exactly what I would have to present to show them you know, for the, you know, like you said, plan versus the curriculum itself.
Right.
Right. So to add on to Rachel, this is Nicole again. So if we do go with one of those, you know, learning companies, then the correct question to ask, or the best question to ask is, will you help me come up with a plan to present to the superintendent?
Me.
Right? Right. Like if
Oh,
we,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like with any company like yours, right? Like yours or what is the Rachel, what place did you
It was
mention?
like Time for Learning. It was like a timeforlearning.com, I think it was. It was basically like another
Right.
kind of online site that will provide like, you know, yeah,
The
basically.
curriculum, but you know,
Mhm.
then we can ask them, then we would say, so would you guys be able to help me put together a plan? You know, it's great that you have the curriculum, but the plan is something that the superintendent needs from us. That is if you go with them.
Right, and
Um,
that you're legally obligated to provide if you
right,
take
right.
your
Because
child to homeschool. Right. I think that is a great question to
I
ask.
didn't realize the difference between the two, the plan and the curriculum. I hear curriculum and I think that is the plan. It's just another word
Right.
for
That's
plan.
same. That's what I was good that she clarified that because I thought that was the same thing
Right. That
also.
is a very good question, Rachel.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the curriculum would be more, and this is like, I'm sure they have a lot more in there, but it would be like the actual stuff that your kid is getting, whether it's handouts or, little things she needs to fill in. The
Right.
the plan is more sort of for the adult who's guiding this.
Got it.
Yeah, like
Got
you
it.
said, like the goals basically, like she will accomplish, learning all the uppercase, lowercase, or being able to read sight words or something like that, right? And do, is that, yeah. Okay.
As well as the assessment, and I am going to assess whether she knows those things with a test,
Via,
with a verbal, a
right.
song or whatever it is. Yeah.
And
And that, that's a good question for these companies. Again, I'm not a homeschooling expert, but I would say for sure that would be something that you could and should ask them.
right. Okay. Yeah, just because I totally understand the whole like, sending a letter of intent, making sure you reach within that time frame. I guess my thing that I haven't been able to wrap my mind around yet is yeah, how do we, or what would we need to provide, as far as like you said, like the curriculum slash plan, but now it seems a little clearer, but just I mean, um okay.
And I
Thank
think
you. That was helpful.
going on that website, that's on the slide, New York State requirement,
Hmm.
that's gonna be really helpful too, because
Hmm.
it's kind of like the place where you need to go to figure out whether you're in compliance with the state law. So that's gonna have
Right.
resources there for you too, of this is what it needs to look like.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And now that I think of it, I have my two younger kids go to kindercare, it's daycare, but the preschool and pre-K and transitional kindergarten, they provide every quarter to us the plan with the breakdown of curriculum and his assessments and where he stands each quarter. Like now he's able to write his name, recite his home address, and all that stuff. So now I think I actually know what I'm looking for. Um, in terms of providing something to the superintendent, but I'm pretty sure they have like sample resources on the New York State site, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. For me, I don't think I made it that far into my research. um. But all right. Great. Thank you. That was very helpful.
You're welcome, that's okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to share? All right. Well, if that is about it, it's almost 8 o'clock. So I always try to keep these under an hour because I know how tiring it probably is for everybody who's got kids at home. So I just want to thank Emily Dowie and the Pearl River Library and all of you again for showing up. And again, feel free to email me tomorrow or whenever if you've got any questions. I'll be happy to help you to the best of my ability. Thanks so much.